Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. Don't forget to make yourself comfortable because today we have very interesting stories and one of them is a story about a woman with a child who insisted on sitting in a train instead of pregnant woman cause she deserves it more. Please subscribe if you haven't and I hope you'll enjoy it. I was visiting a friend, an ex-co-tenant, over the weekend. I know her from university and she now has two sons aged 4 and 6. The 6-year-old has long wavy hair like his father, they are kinda a hippie family, but not anti-vax or anything. So we were having cake and tea Saturday afternoon at her place when we heard a quite loud banging on the door. Without hesitation my friend just yelled, "Yeah, come on in, the door is open." As she must have expected either one of her own kids who were playing outside or some neighborhood children. This is pretty normal here in Switzerland that you don't lock your door, especially in country villages. Instead, it was the mother of a girl her older son goes to elementary school with, the EM of this story. It started pretty normal as the EM brought a stack of printed out lice warning leaflets and hands them to my friend and explains that there was a lice outbreak at the kindergarten and elementary school and some of the kindergarten children, including her daughter, were affected. My friend was thankful for the warning and tried to calm the EM down by offering her some cake and tea, so the EM joined us. I don't have kids, but I know that lice infestations happen, especially among small children, and that it's usually not a big deal. The affected kid just doesn't go to school in kindergarten until it's over, like 2 or 3 days, and there is a range of products to treat it. Also summer holidays already started, so the risk of spreading was quite small. No biggie, we thought. Then EM goes on about how her daughter was affected so badly that she had to cut her long hair and that her daughter now is super sad and cries all day because of this. My friend tried to be nice and comforting, telling her that it will grow back and that she is sure that her daughter looks beautiful with short hair etc. I decided not to get involved as this seemed to be a matter between two mothers and I felt a bit inappropriate, so I kept silent while the conversation derailed. Yeah, but isn't it weird that son's name now has longer and more beautiful hair than my girl? Haha, oh well, he started to grow it out a while ago because he likes the long hair of father's name. But he looks like a girl and daughter's name looks like a boy. Don't you think this could affect her? Affect her how? Having short hair as a girl isn't uncommon and looks great and it's okay for boys to have long hair. She pointed to EM's head. EM has short hair too. Yeah, but I am 40 and not a girl anymore. Girls have to have long beautiful hair and boys have to look like boys. If they don't they get all confused. Haha, what? So could you please give your son an appropriate haircut so daughter's name doesn't feel so bad about having shorter hair than your boy? No, I am not going to do that. He really wants to grow it out, but who knows with children, right? This can change any time, but I will not make him. Well, he sure will catch lice, then I am still surprised your dirty kids don't already have them. Then you will have to cut his hair. Me, now feeling the need to defend my friend. Hey. Now try to be nice. She told you she is not going to cut his hair, so that's just it. I waved at the door. Yeah, how about we all calm down now? EM, please leave now, I think we don't have anything else to discuss. Thanks for the lice warning and tell your daughter she is beautiful. Thankfully, EM left without making a ruckus. My friend now is a bit paranoid that EM will try to infect her boys with lice on purpose. Well, all that I can say, I don't have kids, but I know for sure she wouldn't have gotten another word out after your dirty kids before getting the hell out of my house. My aunt, by marriage to my uncle, has always been quite entitled. It had always been very clear to my entire family from the start that she mainly married my uncle for his money and expected to always be treated like a princess by him and everyone else around her and always got a horrible attitude whenever things didn't go exactly as she wanted. My mother had just passed away from cancer after only having been diagnosed a few months prior, and we were doing final preparations for her funeral that would take place the next day. Note, I was just 19 during this time, and with everything that had happened, I of course already was not in the best state of mind. I was very much grieving the loss of my mother who I was extremely close to and just wanted everything to go as smoothly as possible without any hassle of disturbances that could potentially make me even more stressed out and depressed. Thus, I decided that I did not want to have young children at the funeral. At least not during the reception and the speeches. Young children make lots of noise, especially when it's very quiet and they are in negative environments where there is a lot of sadness and when they aren't the center of their parents' attention. I didn't want anything to disturb the reception and the people who wanted to give a speech about my mother, and thus I did not want any young children to attend. Everyone who got invited for the funeral with young children was very understanding and did not make any fuss about it. Everyone except for my aunt. I first told my uncle that I didn't want any young children to attend the funeral a few days before and thus asked him if he could make sure he got a babysitter for his 1-year-old son. He appeared to not have any problem with it and said he'd tell my aunt about it. That night I got a text from him asking why I didn't want any young children to attend. I explained the above-mentioned reasons to him and then he asked if I couldn't make an exception for his son. I found this to be very odd and very annoying and said that I would not be making any exceptions for anyone. The following day in the evening, I received yet another text message from him, yet this time it had very emotionally manipulative undertones to it. He said something along the lines of, "Please don't make this time harder on us than it already is and allow us to take our son with us, and you're letting your emotions over your mother's loss cloud your judgment," which absolutely infuriated me. So come the day before the funeral. My aunt and uncle had still refused to get a babysitter for their son and we were discussing in the reception hall of the funeral home. This time my aunt was present and she asked me once again to allow her son to attend. I once again said no and asked them to drop it because I wasn't going to change my mind. My nephew's girlfriend even offered to babysit their son for the duration of the reception. It was literally only going to be for 2 hours. My aunt flat out refused her offer and once again said that she wanted her son to attend. Then when I once again told her that there were no young children allowed and that my decision was final, she threw a temper tantrum bigger than her 1-year-old infant would ever be able to throw. She started crying, saying that I was being unfairly cruel to her and outright started to demand that her son attend my mother's funeral or else she wouldn't. She stormed outside with her son in the pram, yes, she also took him with him during the funeral preparations and started crying and yelling at my family members. Well, we had literally just lost my mother not even 1 week ago. My uncle didn't say anything and just followed her outside and eventually left with her and made me and the rest of my family to finish up the preparations by ourselves. We were absolutely livid and I was at the verge or just breaking down into tears myself at that point. So, the day of the funeral arrives and my aunt and her son are absent, my uncle arrived alone. Because I was of course preoccupied by my grief and the funeral itself, I at first didn't pay much attention to my uncle, but after my nephew had given his speech about my mother, he whispered to me that our uncle was holding his phone up high, appearing to be recording everything. When I looked at him, I saw that he was indeed doing exactly that and asked him if he could stop recording since it was making people uncomfortable and looked very rude and weird. He then said that he was live streaming it for my aunt and that if we had only allowed his son to attend, he wouldn't have had to do this. Yes. He literally said that. I was too emotionally exhausted to cause a scene at that point, but I was absolutely livid. Thankfully the rest of the funeral went smoothly and my uncle immediately left after the reception and speeches. He didn't even bother to talk to the rest of the family members and attendees afterwards. Needless to say, I pretty much cut them out of my life after that, and to this day they have never apologized to me for their behavior. Gross. Your aunt sounds like a broken woman. She really should not be allowed anywhere near you guys. If one of my aunts pulled this, I would want my whole family to cut all contact. I travel about 2 hours a day for work, so I've encountered plenty of entitled parents and children. Cast. EM. Extra mayo. NK. Nickelodeon. Me, sadly. This happened on my way to work this morning. For anyone that doesn't know, the morning rush is called super dense crush load by analysts because there's about 16 people per cubic meter packed in the train. I got on a train that originated at my station and therefore got a window seat in the women's compartment. A woman and her child, I'm assuming she was around 5, got on just before the train left 10 minutes later, which had already gotten crowded. She and her child made their way up to the aisle where I was seated. She tells her kid to go up and stand next to my window. The kid seemed really sweet, so I offered her to sit on my lap for the journey. Who would want to stand in the crowd for an hour? She declined and said she preferred standing so she could look out the window. No biggie, I made more space for her to lean against my seat and put my earphones back in. I could see the M muttering to herself, but didn't bother listening into what she was saying. I assumed she was upset with the morning crowd. She kept talking though, and looking in my direction, so I paused my music and left the earphones in, so I could eavesdrop. She was actually complaining loudly about me. So I took out my earphones and smiled at her, and asked if something was wrong. Big mistake. You should stand up and let me sit, I have a child with me. I'm sorry I have to get up at the last stop, and I'm not giving up my seat. I did offer to let NK sit on my lap though. But I'm tired too. I'm getting pushed around by the crowd. All the trains are crowded in the morning, we can't help it. At this point, the woman next to me offered her CTM just to keep her quiet. No, I don't want your seat, I want hers, pointing at me. You're not having it, sorry. I put my earphones back in and stared out the window for the next few stops. At this point, another woman managed to push her way into the aisle. She was pregnant, I assumed so by the roundness of her belly and the way she was protectively holding a hand against it. Might have been around 4 or 5 months along. I got up to let her sit because she was getting off earlier than me and well because she was pregnant. NK shuffled a bit to let us move and then went back to her leaning position. Why did you do that? Do what? You pushed my child to let that woman sit. That was my seat. I'm sorry if NK had to move a bit, but the woman is pregnant and getting off earlier than us. Let her sit for a while. You can't treat me like this, my husband is a politician, I'll have you arrested for assaulting my child. You're being unfair against me. Just because that woman got knocked up doesn't mean I don't need to sit, yada yada. She was now yelling at anyone who made eye contact with her was nearby. She made a lot of personal comments on my attire and other factors. I ignored it all because I don't need this first thing in the morning before work. She must have caused quite a commotion because a lady cop got on at a later station after some of the rush died down and asked her to get off the train with her. Somebody must have been annoyed enough to call the helpline. Her and NK were taken off the train along with pregnant lady whose stop it was anyway. I got my window seat back and had a nice view of her being taken to the station master's cabin. It was pretty satisfying in my opinion. You shouldn't help the pregnant lady just because she got knocked up, but you should help me because I have a child. That's so funny. Now let her politician husband deals with that. So my husband, now ex, and I were one of the last to board the plane as he had misplaced his boarding ticket and we had to search for it when we got on. We were walking up the plane and could see our row. The plane was pretty much full and all settled in, a couple older than us sat in our row of 3. I checked our tickets and then asked the couple what seats they were supposed to be in as those were ours. They refused to move, they had scored 3 seats to their 2 bottoms, whereas the row in front had a very slim girl at the window. The air hostess came over and as they were older and playing the age card, the hostess asked us to sit in the seats in front. My husband argued that in the event of an accident, our names were not on the right locations, however the hostess said she would swap these over. So we sat down next to the slim girl who took up no room whatsoever. The couple behind were very loudly gloating at their win and discussing how they would have a very pleasant 14-hour trip home. My husband told me as soon as we can to recline the seats as he was pissed they're gloating, so here we are settled when this man starts walking up the plane. He was a very large man, long dreadlocks, shoving a baguette in his mouth as he made his way up the aisles. My husband just looked at me and smiled as he realized the only spare seat was that window seat that would have been next to mine. And yes, karma took a dump on the gloating couple's lap as the man asked them to move so he could get into his seat. Once settled, he took up a lot of the space, and once in the air, the lady called a hostess down and started having a strop about how we had stolen their seats and that we had refused to move when they boarded. Sadly for the lady, our argument at the start of the flight had been witnessed by the staff as everyone else was settled by then, so she was shut down by the staff who refused to move us. They had a miserable flight as the guy kept getting up for the toilet, extra drinks and extra snacks. Whoever he was a complete gem of a human being. This is awesome. I love it when you get to see consequences play out in real time. I would have bought him a drink. It would have been so much better if he was a little tipsy. Oh my god, this is stupid. I went going to see Aladdin today at the movie theaters, so I purchased the tickets online and drove to the theater. We got to our seats, brother and I gave him some money to get a snack or some popcorn. I told him I would stay here, well he does so. He comes back with a water and popcorn. About halfway into the movies I took a break to go to the bathroom. After my break I took a walk up to the area where you buy popcorn, forgot what it's called somehow, and I was in line to get a popcorn and a drink and took out my debit card, so I was ready to pay. Enters EM. She gets in line and is right behind me as I'm going to go pay. And sees me with my card. She taps me on the shoulder and says, "Excuse me, but I think you are too young to be able to use one of those." I'm 16. I simply say, "Ma'am, I'm well old enough to own one of these. My mom helped me get it." EM walks away, don't know what for, and comes back asking where my mom is. She isn't at the moment. She is at my house, EM says ugh under her breath, and I ask if there is something wrong. She says, "You can just give the card to me, I'm sure there is nothing on it." I of course decline her request and say it has enough money to buy what I need. It had like $10 on it. EM says, "Well then it has enough for what I need." She reaches her hand out and said, "Hand it over in a mean you know what's gonna happen if you don't kind of voice." "Ma'am, it's not yours to take. I own this card and I'm going to use it." We step out of line and she starts saying how my mom is a bad mom for getting me that. And how she is stupid and probably didn't go to school. I'm guessing she said that to make me feel sad to the point I give it to her, but that was not going to happen. I ignored her remarks and I said, "Ma'am, I won't let you have." She proceeded to try and steal my card and I asked for her to stop what she is doing and a man stepped in and told her hands off. He looked like the guy that would be in a biker gang or something. She said, "Isn't this kind gentleman too young to own a debit?" The man said, "Doesn't look too young at all. Do you have a problem with people that are younger than you?" She said, "No, not at all." She backed away slowly and that was the end of it. Short my not sweet. I enjoyed the movie and my little brother still has no idea what happened. He asked me when I got back what took so long. I told him problems with the popcorn machine. I didn't get the popcorn. You should have screamed help, this woman is trying to rob me, OP, then watch her run like a cockroach. If she's caught it's a strong arm robbery charge and a multi-year prison sentence. Win-win. Well guys, that's it for today. If you end up enjoying this video please consider subscribing, and if you missed the last episode on the channel I'm gonna link it right here. The story is about a guy who tried to steal OP's purse but got injured, so now he and his mom are suing OP. Check this out if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video.